class. My name is Kiara Chase, and today I'll be presenting on supervision, values, and ethics. The class is ethical decision making and public policy. What is a supervisor's responsibility? So, supervisors are essentially responsible for playing a vital role in the oversight and implementation of services on behalf of supervisees. Those services, they're also responsible for orientating staff, providing feedback to staff, being supportive of staff, and ensuring that ethical practices are being followed for the services that they're implementing. What is that supervisor's? I'm sorry. Is your supervisor supportive? So it's very important in the social work profession that you, or on any job, that you are, that supervisors are supportive of their staff. So some tidbits that I wanted to touch on was supervisors should make sure that they are clear about their expectations. At the initial encounter with your staff, it's important that supervisors are upfront about what it is that they'll expect of them, so that there is no gray area. That you are making sure that you expound upon what it is that you want from your staff and what you'll be expecting from them in when they work with their clients. It's also important to give good feedback, making sure that in providing feedback that you're supportive, that you are uplifting and encouraging your staff, and that you are staying connected and current. Staying connected to your staff on what's going on with their cases, and making sure that you're all connected on current events in our country, what's going on around us, what's going on in the social work profession, taking those CEUs, participating in those trainings, and making sure that you are familiar with things that are going on. And then do not micromanage. If you as a supervisor are meeting with your staff regularly and staffing those cases and following up and discussing what's needed, if you are having those meetings and then following up in the next week or two to make sure that your staff is following through, there won't be a need for micromanagement. So it's the supervisor's responsibility along with the staff. So if everybody is doing what they need to do, and I know that may sound unrealistic, but as social workers, we have the code of ethics, and then we have our social work values. So if you are a professional, then you know what's expected of you from the social work perspective, and then you also have those agency expectations. So if you are familiar with those things, then you want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do anyway. So there shouldn't be a need for micromanagement. And then supervisory roles in the 6 stages. So in our text, it talks about different roles that supervisors play. And so part of those roles are identifying ethical issues, determining appropriate help, thinking critically, managing conflict, planning and implementing, and then evaluating and following up. And so we touched on each of those, but we'll just get a little more specific here. So we talked about orientation. Orientation is pretty much that initial contact. So at orientation, you're making sure that clients are familiar with what's going to be expected of them, going over agency policy and procedure. And although this is ongoing, you still have this initial meeting within, the orientation phase. And then you go on to part of identifying issues, ethical issues. You do that through 2 processes, and that's through orientation and that's through ongoing supervision. So that's those meetings that you'll have with your staff to discuss cases and see what's going on with those cases. And then you continue to meet with your staff and you explain to them that if there is a situation that involves suicidal ideation, you discuss with them what's expected of them, what they're required to do. And then any urgent situation, if there is some threats or some harassment that the supervisor may be facing from a client, you give them the procedure on what they need to do to make sure that they are protected. And then ongoing supervision. So we touched on that several times, but part of ongoing supervision is when you're having those meetings with your staff, making sure that you are listening. And I included a quote: when people talk, listen completely. Most people never listen. And so it's important that when you're meeting with your staff, that's the time for them to express to you what's going on with their cases. And although you are to provide feedback, listen first. And don't just listen to respond. Hear them out. Let them know that you're there for them, you're listening to them, and you hear them. So, I from personal experience, just being heard, that says a lot for me. So, just listen as a supervisor, and then once you've listened and once they've expressed themselves, you may take a few notes so you can know what you need to go back and touch on. And then while you're listening, you're gonna be listening for those ethical breaches or any ethical dilemmas that they may have faced, and then you're gonna be making sure you correct those. And so this is just a slide that I wanted to add to show, what we do as supervisors and supervisees. We work together. Collaboration is very important. Teamwork is very important. Leadership is important, but to be a good leader, you've got to have good staff. So if you have good staff and you lead from the top, people will want to follow you if you lead by example. So I just wanted to share these. And then determining appropriate help. So, although many of the agencies that social workers work for are social service agencies, everybody that works there may not be a social worker. So there may be an incident where the supervisor is not a social worker, but the worker is a social worker, or the supervisee is a social worker, or vice versa. And so there may be a dilemma there, because what the supervisor may think is appropriate for the social worker to do, it may not be appropriate based on the code of ethics and our core values. So there may be an issue there, but it's important to make sure that we address those issues, and neither of us we can agree to disagree, and we can take from what the supervisor wants and take from what the employee wants to do, and we can make that work. And it's part of working together and collaborating. Thinking critically. So professional distance and professional expertise. So professional distance refers to setting boundaries, and setting boundaries requires you can't be too rigid, you can't be too formal. So you have to establish a happy medium and stay within it, because you don't want co-workers to get the wrong impression and think that you're, not co-workers or clients. You don't want them to think you're friends. You have to set those boundaries and stick to those. And then the same is as far as the supervisor and supervisee relationship. You still have to have those boundaries to prevent any ethical breaches or any situations that will violate the code of ethics. And then reality testing and alternative methods of thinking. And so I talked about that a little bit before, but I was saying, we don't have to always agree. There is, in most cases, more than one way to handle a situation. So if we collaborate and put our ideas together, then, we can still agree to disagree, but we figured it out because we were able to put my ideas and your ideas and take those and work it out for the client. And so for this portion of thinking critically, risk management. So documentation is very important as a social worker. In order to be effective, you must document everything that you do. If you do not document, it did not happen. And if you document from the onset of the case to termination, then you're always covered. Managing conflict, we talked about that, and that's just pretty much supervisors offering feedback, working together, and establishing that happy medium. and planning and implementing decision. That goes back to having those meetings and talking about what's going on your cases, meeting with your staff, and having those staffings, be it weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, just making sure that you're meeting and discussing what's going on. Evaluate and follow up. So in the final stage of the ethical management process, we have to take the responsibility and make sure that what we're doing is effective. So from the start of the case to the end of the case, did we see a change? And it may not work for every client, but for the most part, we need to know that the services that we're implementing are effective. And not only are they effective, are we setting measurable goals for our clients? Are what we asking of our clients, is it even realistic? So making sure that we evaluate, follow up, and then making sure that we're doing what we need to do so that our clients, ethically, we're doing what we need to do so that our clients are successful. And then we talked about supervisor and supervisee boundaries, making sure that we set boundaries and have a happy medium so that we do not have any ethical breaches. And then this is my reference. Thank you.